The RTX 2060 has been one of the more controversial GPU launches recently. However, a lot of them are, so what can we really do about that? Today, I'm reviewing the RTX 2060, and I know it's been reviewed a lot, but I'm going to get down to the point and tell you my opinion on it, so let's get into it. Hey, what's up guys? My name is JD from JDTechGear and welcome back to the channel where we discuss PC patch reviews, guides, mods, and more. So if you're into that sort of thing, consider subscribing and checking out the rest of the channel.
The 2060 is the latest in the RTX lineup, aiming for the mid-tier consumer base, hitting the shelves at a price of $350. If you're wondering why many are conflicted about this card, for some it starts with the card specs value proposition. For $350, you get the TU106 architecture, which is a cut-down version from the 2070, 6GB of GDDR6 VRAM, 1920 CUDA cores, the same as the 1070, and a lithography of 12 nanometers. Those are some of the basic specs. We're not going to get too caught up in that. The specs are widely available to view if you want to. $350 competes with the likes of the GTX 1070 at a slightly lesser price, yet offers 2GB less of VRAM, but more on that in a bit. I've benchmarked several games from various years to get a good overall feel of this card. For my test system, I'll be using an 8600K clocked at 5 GHz with 16GB of RAM clocked at 3000 MHz, and each game will be tested at 1440p with the exception of Battlefield 5 with RTX on. That will be 1080p resolution. A lot of you may already know that this card competes with the 1070 Ti, so I won't linger too long on the benchmarks. However, I will be referencing some of my benchmarks in my conclusion. First up is a game that no one even knows about. Fortnite. Tested at 1440p in epic settings for everything, the 2060 is outpaced by the 1080 Ti by 43% and beats out the 1070 by 7% with an average FPS of 95 and a 1% low of 78. Doom was tested at ultra settings at 1440p using the Vulkan API, and the 2060 beat out the 1070 with an average of 185 FPS and a 1% low of 152. This is a significant step up when compared to the 1070, while the 1080 Ti kept hitting the FPS cap of 200. Metro Last Light Redux is still a graphically demanding title. At 1440p very high settings and physics on, the 2060 pulled ahead of the 1070 by 9 FPS on average and a slightly higher 1% low of 67 FPS. The 1080 Ti was far ahead of the lead in this one by nearly 50%. The recent release of the remastered Resident Evil 2 is a beauty of a game with solid optimization, yet it can be graphically demanding at higher settings. The 2060 gained a larger gap in average FPS to the 1070 and narrowed the gap to the 1080 Ti when compared to the previous titles. Resident Evil 2 has the ability to chew up vast quantities of VRAM and will be addressed with the 2060 in the conclusion. Battlefield 5 at 1440p and the ultra quality preset had the 2060 at an average of 78 and a 1% low of 70 and buttersmooth gameplay. This has the 2060 in the 1070 Ti territory, yet again going beyond the 1070. With RTX on at 1080p ultra settings, the 2060 had an average FPS of 45 and a 1% low of 34. However, to its credit, I put it through one of the most graphically intensive levels under no flag, with rain and water coated surfaces everywhere. The 2060 reaches to 60 FPS reliably at most times, but at its worst dips to 45 FPS. Take this as you will. Computationally, this is impressive. Gaming wise, it can be too much of a performance hit. Battlefield 1 was tested with the ultra quality preset and had a 10 FPS difference between the 2060 and the 1070, with the 1080 Ti going far beyond. Again, this is a similar result to the previous titles. Lastly, we have Black Ops 4 with similar gaps in performance to the other games tested. The 2060 with an average FPS of 101 and a 1% low of 85. Black Ops 4 has the ability to use a lot of video memory at higher resolutions and will be also addressed in the conclusion. By now, it's no surprise that the 2060 performs on par to the 1070 Ti, and I don't have an overclock applied either. One of the biggest issues I see people discussing is the 6 gigs of VRAM. At $350, this card competes with cards with 8 GB. However, you are paying for ray tracing technology and next-gen memory. In most cases, at 1440p, I used a max of 5 GB. Since high resolutions require more memory, 4K is mostly out of the question since this card primarily peaks at 1440p anyways. Games like Resident Evil 2 can easily go above 11 GB of VRAM, but at that point the visual difference is minimal. Black Ops 4 also requires a decent amount of memory as well at 4K, but the 6 GB buffer offered by the 2060 is still plenty for 1440p gaming. Even for future titles, 6 GB of RAM will be enough for high frames at 1440 and 1080p. Games will not have a minimum of 6 gigs of RAM for for a very long time. For $350, the RTX 2060 delivers competitive performance to a card released about a year ago for $100 less while offering ray tracing technology. Which brings me to my next point. The RTX technology is early on for video games, obviously. Computation and simulation are very impressive, but it's still very early on for video games. However, they are being implemented more and more, although it will be interesting to see what Metro Exodus looks like coming up in the near future. Also, DLSS technology, although not widely integrated with video games yet, holds a promising outlook by offloading anti-aliasing onto the tensor cores and not taking a massive performance hit like traditional anti-aliasing. I'm genuinely excited for DLSS. Out of the entire RTX lineup, I personally believe the 2060 delivers the most value and is the most practical of all of them, especially since it performs so closely to the 2070. Another thing is that most of the 2060s, including the partner cards, go for MSRP, which I highly respect. So yes, you can actually purchase this card for $350. Not to mention the Founders Edition is whisper quiet during testing and performed around 47 degrees Celsius above ambient temperature during peak game stress testing. As a consumer, I would purchase the 2060 for solid 1440p and high 1080p performance. It's not the best bang for your buck, but delivers solid performance all around and sticks to the MSRP while competing against the 1070 Ti and 1080 that are around $400 to $500 new, if you can even find them since they're mostly inflated since they stopped producing those things, or $300 to $450 used. So the next best thing would definitely be the RTX 2060. That's if you are deciding to purchase a card within this performance range.
Alright, so there's my opinion. So you can either agree with it, disagree with it, or feel neutral. That's just my personal opinion. Let me know what you guys think about it down below. Have I changed your mind, altered your mind? And I think it's important to watch a couple of reviews before actually purchasing the product, so I highly recommend checking out a bunch of people's reviews just to get a good overall consensus of the product that you're actually buying. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new here, consider subscribing and checking out the rest of the channel if you haven't already. My name is JD, and thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. And for a little bonus, I know it's been a while, guys, and I'm sorry it has, but I've been settling into the new place, the new apartment, and into the new job and getting into a routine. So I'm sorry it's taken a minute, but I'm making sure the videos that I'm putting out to you guys are absolutely 100% quality, and I'm not just trying to rush something out just for the sake of having something out on YouTube. So I'm sorry it's taking so long, but that's the reason why. And I'm also a little sick, so that's why my voice sounds a little distorted. So sorry about that. I don't know if it sounds better or worse. Maybe I'll just put a modulator on and just completely change it altogether. Anyways, thank you guys for sticking around. For whoever's here watching this video, I love you all. Bye, guys.